Paul Davies. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Yes, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thanks for making time to chat so that the listener or the viewer can get a sense of it. You work for Manchester Camerata, you're head of communications and development. Do you want to give us a tiny top line bit about that charity?
So we're an orchestra and charity that essentially puts communities first. And we do many different things, whether that's playing and touring Mozart, whether it's doing an orchestral rave at Glastonbury or pioneering dementia therapy. We make a difference to people's lives.
Fantastic. Yes. And I've enjoyed over the last 6 months hearing a little bit more about the difference the charity makes, because you took part in the Major Gifts Mastery Programme this year for the first 6 months of 2020. Just before we get into some of the key things you learned, what was it like to do the Major Gifts Mastery Programme anyway, and I guess this year of all years?
It was really nice meeting everyone initially, and there was a real fraternity of we're all fundraisers. We've all got these opportunities and challenges and fears in doing the job and all of that, and kind of it was a real community and really nice to share that experience with people and get to know other people and learn from what they're doing. And then lockdown hit, and it became even more helpful and almost like really timely for me, because it was like having this sounding board and support around you and someone running alongside you, almost spurring you on. So it's been gold to me.
Mm. Fantastic. Yeah, many people have said that having that group of people in their corner doing their best to raise philanthropic gifts, even at this difficult time, just that solidarity has been hugely helpful in addition to the content. And in terms of some of the key distinctions you learned from the training days or through the coaching, you and I had a chat the other day, and you were telling me some really interesting bits of progress you've made in your understanding and in your practice. So do you want to tell me what are one or two of the things that you've taken from the program?
So it's fundamentally helped my confidence and almost my mindset to fundraising. So I feel like how I approach meetings, how I conduct meetings or events or coffees is just completely different. And I kind of go to meetings really excited and almost more curious than I ever did, and open, and kind of focus on making the person I'm meeting their life better in some, or easier in some way, and finding out more about them and their world than going to talk, which was kind of, it was more talk than listen before, and I've really benefited from that, and I enjoy it so much more now, and it's so much more effective. And
Yeah,
it's kind of a lot more about the relationship and kind of marinating in that, and seeing the fruits of it.
yeah, it makes such a difference. I know it's kind of easy to say, and many of us are aware of the importance of truly being open to hearing
Yeah.
how the other person is doing, and everybody talks about the importance of listening, but actually in practice early in one's career as a fundraiser it can be surprisingly hard to do that in practice. So what would you say about kind of how you've made that shift and the implications that now you have made that shift to have the confidence to approach meetings in that more of a win-win way? How's that come about, or what are the implications of that for you?
So there's sometimes a lot of things to say about your charity, and sometimes when I say talk more than listen, sometimes there's sometimes a feeling of pressure that I must not leave any stone unturned about our charity, rather than um, just really quickly give a bit of an overview and then just listen and relax into the conversation. And then, as people are people, you focus on what they care about and where there's mutual ground and a matching to be had, rather than because everything we do is really amazing, but it's not necessarily of interest to everybody. And it's just kind of grasping that whole, it's so obvious when you say it out loud, but it's transformational really. And that win-win, I think that's the mindset of fundraising isn't a dirty word. It's not all about money. And it's how I approach meetings really is now, this is something that makes people feel good. You know, if you're giving to something you care about, that makes you feel good and it makes good stuff happen. And so it's like you say, it's win-win. And that mindset has been a real gear change, and it makes the whole thing just really enjoyable.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And A, makes each of those meetings enjoyable. B, it helps solve another important challenge for a fundraiser, which is the excitement and enthusiasm to go the extra mile to get more conversations
Yes,
because they're
yeah,
going well, rather than sometimes they're a bit awkward and pressured.
yeah. And so we've just launched what is our recovery appeal during COVID, and we've taken a really considered approach. We've taken our time about it. We did nothing knee jerk, and that came from fundamentally why we exist and what impact we want to make, and therefore what is our ask to people. It's not just about survival; it's about what impact we want to make with people's investment in us. And so that's kind of been a considered approach, but now I'm at the stage of talking to people about it. I'm prioritizing getting meetings in my diary, and my diary hasn't been fuller. Like I could be doing say a handful of meetings a month. Now I've got 6 key meetings a week, which are really important meetings in my diary. And I've found that just jumping on the phone to somebody, I was saying to you that the amount of yoga classes or leisure activities I've interrupted by just calling people just to get a meeting in has been super productive, because I'm interacting. I've got a little informal interaction with them, which you kind of is helpful anyway, because you find things out about people and it just helps your relationship already. And kind of when you go into the meeting, you've got a bit of a human connection anyway, because you know what's going on in their life, and it all helps you just to again, it's just relationship building, but it's nuances that really matter.
So a couple of things I wanted to pick up on there. The first was, did you say that before 6 months ago, you might have had 3 or 4 conversations with supporters a month, and now you're up to 5 or 6 a week? Did
A
I hear
week,
that correctly?
yeah. So that's quite a big turnaround. But the game changer has been just getting on the phone. Emails just take forever, and you know, email is just something for us all to do, and yet picking up the phone just helps the relationship, but also get stuff done. And I just feel more productive for it,
Yeah.
and then it has a knock-on effect in terms of the cash raised as well.
Yeah, and as you know, this is such a key theme of my philosophy on fundraising, or certainly high value fundraising. And I've been talking to lots of other people on the program who've made this kind of a shift. So just to be clear for the listener, it's not appropriate to be calling people who don't support your
No,
charity, but
no, no.
if and when they already care and they already support you, and you've got their phone number, and uh, therefore it is appropriate for you to make contact in this way rather than the safer feeling way of sending an email. um, your experience of becoming braver in that way has been richly rewarded, and it sounds like it's one of the key reasons why you're getting so many conversations with people who care about your cause now. And it's not surprising that also that's helping turn into results. Just one thing to pick up is, usually you don't pick up the phone and then expect to have the whole conversation there and then,
No.
but rather than send an email to request a proper chat, you pick up the phone to request a proper chat. Often they pick up, and then they're only too happy to put something in the diary for next week, for instance.
Yeah, and it's always yeah, because I want a considered chat and conversation with people, but it's always that what's next, which was another thing that was really useful on the course. Um, I think my mindset sometimes was, and it's just your negative chatter. Sometimes it can be on the negative side than positive. So with just calling someone, and it is our supporters, it would be they might think I'm bothering them, or I can't just interrupt their life, or maybe I can't, and they're just barriers. And actually, I had one person say, "Lovely to hear your voice," and this was somebody that I've had a growing relationship with, but it's grown all the more because of that. And now I'm having really enjoyable meetings with them, and it's going well. So, but it's almost that next. What's the follow up? What's the next step? And again, I'm not being pushy by saying that, because this was great. When can I talk? When can we check in? Or just setting a next date and next action.
Yes, and that again, it sounds easy and obvious in a way, but one only relaxes into feeling that that is the most natural thing in the world to say if you've truly embraced the philosophy that people enjoy giving to a cause they care about,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is different from where some charities are at, which is, please, can I get money so that we can pay for stuff?
Yeah.
You've taken to heart one of the exercises we did in the program that really helps us emotionally embrace the notion that if someone ends up giving generously to a cause they care about, their life does not become poorer. Generally, their life becomes richer in the deepest sense of the word.
And in the same way, this helps with rejection, for want of a better word. Not everybody wants to give to our charity, and that's right and true enough, because our charity, like other charities, is amazing. We make amazing impact. But in terms of, if you get a no, or a no right now, it's not for me right now, but maybe it will be in the future. That's all good, and it almost helps you manage your own expectations. And I know it comes into you doing your research and all of that, but sometimes it's even in a conversation, that's all good. That's not a bad thing, or something that you need to kick yourself about. It's all part of it, and it's really exciting. And again, it has real impact. They make real impact with us.
Yeah, and part of that, not taking it personally, being okay whether they decide they do want to give today for their reasons or they don't want to give today for their reasons. Being okay with that comes right back to one of the fundamental things we were talking about earlier, which is your goal is not to go out and get money
No.
or get people to give money, but if a key goal is to go and have as many conversations as you can with people who care about this cause, then you're just working the process, and some of those people, for their reasons, are going to be moved to want to give.
Yeah, and when I am asking people to consider giving a contribution, and we can be specific, talking about an amount of money, that again, I feel I relax into that. It's not oh, this is the bit, or this is the part where we're talking about supporting us, or it feels. I feel happy about it, and I feel I can actually be quite direct about it. And the person you're talking to, but yeah, I think that's the best way I can say it. Relaxed into it. I feel like it excites me. It doesn't unnerve me.
Mm. And I think I remember at one point you said that having all some fundamental principles of good steps in a good donor meeting, something I called the Fundraiser's donor meeting checklist. You
Yeah.
mentioned that tool you found really helpful, and even after all this experience, you still look at that most days before your meetings.
Yes.
Without mentioning any names or giving away any details, could you just bring to life, for instance, with one example you're pleased with of a meeting or an ask meeting that's gone well?
Yes. Okay. So we started this fundraising appeal a couple of weeks ago, and one of the first meetings I did was with a current supporter, and I, I went through all this in my mind beforehand. I kind of got myself in the zone. I've always been very prepared for meetings before I did this course, but sometimes I could even be hastily walking to a meeting, and what I'm doing now is zoning into everything I've learned and that mindset before I go to a meeting. And a key part of that is how can I, as I've said, like make life easier for this other person and really listen to them. So this meeting we had quite early on, I talked the person through our plan, and I started off with the problem we're facing and our solution and the impact we want to make, which was very impact driven and focused, which and all the things that chime with this person specifically. And they they have given us what is the largest gift an individual has ever given our charity, and it's a 5-figure gift, but it's a significant amount. And I can honestly say everything I've learned in this course helped our charity unlock that gift, and
Congratulations.
everybody feels good about it.
But I guess there's also knock-on effects of that huge result in terms of morale for your colleagues or even some of the musicians who
Absolutely.
might be, understandably, some of their morale might be taking some knocks in the last 4 months. The
Mm.
implications of you helping that donor do a wonderful, generous thing are far-reaching.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, that was one of the very things that helped that person give more than they actually said in the meeting initially, and they were almost asking me to help them see the higher amount, and that was one of the things that really did it for them, because our musicians are quite rightly right now, as we all know, not quite rightly, as we all know, at home, redundant, their livelihood is at risk, but their mental health is as well. And we need to get them playing again, for them and for our communities. And that really resonated with the person.
Mm. Congratulations, Paul, for putting all this into practice. So you are at this stage of the appeal. You literally launched a couple of weeks ago, and I don't want to jinx anything. Everybody knows that these things are a long haul. However well you're doing, however generous donors are being, we must not be complacent.
No.
But 2 weeks in, what are the results so far that you could be pleased with?
So we are at a third of the target, and it's a big amount, the target, and we're a third of the way within 2 weeks. But again, I can only say that's testament to this course.
Mm. Thank you. Congratulations on all the hard work involved. There was one particular type of concept I remember you saying you were enjoying and that helped, and that was to do with the way we bring to life the cause for a supporter so they really connect. And you were talking about your approach to finding real examples, and the bigger system I teach is called the magic formula, so we don't need to go into that in depth, but
Yeah.
would you say a tiny bit about how your approach to preparing things for when it is your turn to do the talking that shifted, and any examples that bring that to life?
Yeah, so we are, as an orchestra, very much leading the sector in music-led dementia therapy, both regionally, nationally, and internationally, and it's a key part of our strategy. And when I'm talking to people about that, what's really helping is, before the course, I would talk about I would give case studies and real life examples about the transformative impact our therapy has on people. But what I wouldn't always do is ground them in what dementia looks like initially for people in the meeting. Um, Dementia is something that's quite well known now, and a lot of people get to a degree what it is. But there's a lot of assumptions there because people don't quite get what dementia is and the implications for somebody in their life. And so what I do now is really ground someone with a real life example, someone we know who has dementia, but doesn't benefit from our therapy and what their life looks like and the real dark look of dementia and what that looks like at its worst. Before I move on to talk about what something like music therapy and the way we do it and our approach to it gives to somebody, because if you don't know what the problem really looks like, you're not really going to understand and appreciate the impact we make to then support it.
Yeah, and that concept, again, it sounds relatively easy and relatively obvious in a way now, but in my experience, the vast majority of charities and the majority of fundraisers, their practice does not reflect what you just said. They tend to talk largely about what the charity does. And it may well be true that intellectually many of their supporters kind of get what problem needs to be solved, but the fact that we don't truly help them connect to the very reality of something interesting about that problem, I think that's a major reason why sometimes charities fail to inspire someone to want to give.
Yeah, and I think what's helpful is now I can quickly spot where we are trying to get something in that's clearly important to us and is no doubt important, but it's essentially filler. And it's cutting out, it's almost like what you don't say, what you cut out, because essentially it could all be important, but what's going to chime with a donor? And I always keep saying to the team, let's put ourselves in the shoes of a donor. And that's not disregarding our plan, but by putting yourself in the shoes of that donor, you're going to get that match in your head, because that's the match bit is the only way you're going to get support. So it's been really helpful in spotting and helping the team spot what's filler.
And so, Paul, in terms of distinctions you've learned about what to say when it's our turn to do the talking about how our charity makes a difference, I remember you said that using real examples has become clearer for you and easier for you. Could you give me an example of how you might use real example or story when you're talking to some supporters?
Yeah, so there's a young guy we work with who has dementia, and he's in his 30s, and so we work with people who older people who have dementia, but people who have young onset, and that can be quite early on, and so there's this young man used to be in a band. He loves and adores music and had quite a rich musical life. And at the start of the sessions that we were doing, he just looked very withdrawn and like almost like he wasn't in the room, and didn't say much, wasn't very verbal really, and was quite withdrawn and insular, and almost like just looked numb almost within his eyes. And so when we started the music session and making music, which is it's essentially a conversation without words, he was sat on a cajon drum that you can sit on and you can bash, and he just lit up. When I say lit up, he was fully connected with the room and he looked happy. And that light that I could see in his eyes just made my day. I loved witnessing it, and I've been to so many sessions and I see it every time. And this is somebody who like, I'm in a band, I write songs, I make music, and I do that weekly. And for this guy, that he did that, and now this is giving him that back, but it's him, he's doing it. He's expressing himself, and it's just seeing somebody switched back on almost, and it's profound, and it's great. It's a joy to see.
And just hearing you share that, I feel it. I get it. I connect. So is that the kind of example you've been sharing you've been more likely to share proactively to a supporter now
Yeah.
compared to say 6 months ago.
Yeah, and it's the transformational. So it's going from what dementia looks like and feels like, what's the lived experience of that, to what life can look like for somebody with dementia and music therapy in their life. And I see it in people's eyes as I'm in a meeting with them. I see them get it because I'm talking about something that matters. It's real, and I've experienced it and felt it, and I can authentically pass that on to somebody else. And of course, we invite people to see the sessions for themselves, and that's all part of the process of engaging and involving somebody. But even in a meeting, even in a meeting, when I'm saying that to somebody else and it's a real story, it has impact for somebody.
So, Paul, thank you ever so much for giving up your time to share these insights, these little stories to help the listener or viewer understand more about high value fundraising. I really appreciate it. Huge congratulations on the progress you've made and the success of your new appeal so far. I think that's amazing, especially this year of all years, and especially for an arts charity of all the kinds of cause that you're proving that it's doable is really inspiring to me, and I hope that the listener will find it helpful too. I look forward to catching up with you again soon, but for now, best of luck with your fundraising.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye bye.